today. Joining me for this first segment is economics instructor, television host, author, speaker extraordinaire, Geeta Chopra. And of course, she's a friend of the program. Geeta, welcome back. It's good to see you again.
Thank you, Andrew. It is a total pleasure to be here today.
And we're going to kick off here. We're talking about the tariffs. That's been President Trump's tariffs. That's been the talk du jour for the past couple of weeks. And just today, or as of this production, it was announced that Trump had paused the tariffs for 90 days. So they went into effect for about 4 minutes. Trump issues a pause. The markets jump up. Now, I want to be clear that pause does not include China. China's tariffs are at 125%. It also does not include a baseline 10% tariff across the board. So everything's not 0-0. But I wanted to have Geeta on because she does understand economics and teaches it. And I want to get just some baseline understanding for us. I think we see tariffs and we see the charts. We don't know what's going on. We go from headline to headline. What are we really talking about here? So Geeta, first, let's do Econ 101. Explain just what a tariff is briefly, and what purposes do they serve in and of themselves? Why would Trump use this tactic?
Thank you, Andrew. So a tariff, back to Econ 101, is a tax on foreign goods. So you could also say imported goods, and it is a tax levied directly on the foreign producer. So we have American producers, which are domestic, and we have domestic goods, and we have foreign goods, right? And those are produced by foreign producers. So anything coming in the country that is not produced on American soil will then therefore have a special tax levied on it, which is called a tariff.
So it is a tax. That's one of the things that I've contended is that the tariff is just a tax. And one of the gambles here, and tell me if I'm reading this correctly. One of the gambles here that Trump is doing is if he is for tariff's sake, that is, well, we've heard reciprocal tariffs. They do it to us, so we're going to do it to them, that kind of thing. But that just raises taxes on all of us, the consumer, ultimately, if there's not some other goal of either getting to 0-0 or maybe aligning countries geopolitically and economically against China, something like that. If any of those kind of 4D chess moves are not on the table, this just amounts to us paying more in taxes, does it not?
Yeah, and that's a one-sided view. So I just want to back up that long before Donald Trump ever came onto the scene, I've been a fan of tariffs as an economics professor, instructor, major, whatever you want to call me. But yes, absolutely. And I can demonstrate from an economic perspective why this is so crucial for the economy overall in the long run. So I'm going to emphasize that in the long run. When we voted for Donald Trump, everybody was excited and said, bring back domestic production, MAGA, make America great again. Everyone has a MAGA hat, but how many people are actually loyalists and will stay on till the very end? Well, I will. I will still stand strong and say that, yes, now in the short run, we're suffering. That is right. Consumers do suffer from tariffs. We pay the brunt of the cost. That's correct. Why? Because when foreign prices go up, usually what happens is we still have to buy those goods, right? So we end up paying more for them. And there might not be a domestic alternative, or there might be, but domestic producers might then raise their prices as well. So what ends up happening is a consumer pays more. But Andrew, this is a good inflation. This is a healthy inflation. This is not a bad inflation as was imposed by the Biden administration. Why? Because in a nutshell, I'll answer that question. In the long run, we stop buying foreign goods. We start buying American goods. Domestic production goes up. Domestic competition goes up. Domestic prices go down. Volume goes up, supply goes up, and GDP goes up, and we become independent from nations such as China, and in this case, even Canada. So yes, go ahead, and I'll speak more.
So one of the questions, to that is, well, okay, so there's a little bit of, reshoring in production that may happen, or maybe there's some ramp up in our own production, but there are also certain things, or even components of products that we don't make at all in America. That would take some time to implement.
Right.
And it could take the time beyond a Trump administration. So isn't part of the gamble, if it's a long-term view, but if this results in short-term pain, as you know, the American electorate has a very short-term memory. And if a bad economy or if a hurting pocketbook is tied to a Trump decision, and this would be a Trump decision, this is not legislation, this is coming from the Resolute desk in the Oval Office, well, then the Republicans are going to pay a price in 26 and 28. We may not have the long-term time to be able to enjoy the long-term gain. How do we weigh what's the risk-benefit analysis there?
You know, you answered your own question. This is amazing. It's a short-term pain for the long-term gain. And most humans today have a very short time horizon in terms of when they want their flesh to be gratified. Let's face it, right? We want it right away. We can't wait. And, you know, when Trump said he wants to make America great again, he didn't say it would take 1 month. He didn't say it would take 4 years. He didn't say it would happen in his presidency. So here's a man who has come on the scene and is willing to sacrifice his own reputation. And I know he can't be reelected, but even his own administration to say that, look, this will happen even after I'm gone. And I'm willing to lay down my life for it, so to speak, my political life. And, you know, people are still slaughtering him. So that's on a side note. I admire what he's doing. But coming back to the time horizon, look, it takes time, Andrew. It's not going to happen overnight that we're going to start creating domestic production in the areas like for semiconductors or nickel, right, or lithium that we're importing from China. And if we can't wait, then I guess we don't love our country enough. This will take a few economic cycles to hash out. It'll take time for GDP to bounce back, for people for domestic producers to start creating. He's providing all the incentives for them to do that, of course. And, you know, the problem again is that people can't see past their short-term pain because the price of food is up at the grocery store. But either you are for domestic production, making America great again or not. This is the way to do it. And, you know, it's so easy to look at the stock market. Of course, it's crashing. Tariffs are a socially motivating tax. I would say it's the only tax that encourages social behavior in a certain direction. It's literally encouraging consumers to stop buying foreign products.
So, well, but I think also, isn't the risk? We're talking about long term, and I'm with you there. And I think if people are for Make America Great Again, we want to see America restored as the best. Well, it still is the greatest country on earth, but we want to restore our liberty, our freedom to be restored. These kinds of things. But if the American electorate has such a short-term memory, if we get to 2026 and 2028, and we don't reelect people who are going to continue this work to see it through, it's going to be undone by a Democrat or a progressive administration, is it not? And if that's the case, even if not, is there, let me ask you two questions, we'll take them one at a time. Short-term pain, long-term gain. In the short term, is there a recession coming through all this? Is that inevitable?
I don't think so. I mean, no? Look, from where we've come from, I mean, even if it is, look, I don't know if this is an oxymoron, but maybe that's a good recession. We need to do this, Andrew, and I'm so firm on this that, again, when you study all these things in economics for years and years, you understand that the outcome is only good. You know, and again, we just want the short-term money in our bank account right away, and we can't wait. But I don't believe that's the case. I don't believe it's going to be a real recession. If it is, I know the markets are crashing. It's consumer confidence, and it's motivated by fear. I don't think there's any tangible evidence behind it if we do have a recession as we had before. What was your first question again? Sorry.
Well, aren't we taking a big risk that the American electorate is going to vote in an administration after Trump that will continue on this path to see it through and not, the pendulum doesn't swing back or the rubber band snaps back and we go back to the progressive side and they unilaterally undo all this stuff. Now we don't get to see the long-term gain because they're undoing everything.
Right. And if they win, they will. They will undo everything. But I think that Trump has the right frame of mind where he is a positive thinker and he's going to do it regardless and just hope for the best and leave it in God's hands, because we can't not do it in the fear that next term that the liberals are coming back. And they very well might, but we might be doing well by the third or fourth year here with Trump that we might win again, right? And I know he can't run again, but somebody from our party, of course. So I hope and know that he should have a plan for that, to leave it in such a way that our party should win again. And, he's a business person. I'm sure he's taken all this into consideration, but we can't afford to not do this.
I mean, if the tariffs have that stated goal, and we can bring other countries to the table, and especially if we can get closer to free trade with more, if we can align against China, these kinds of things, that's all great. I think one of the things maybe that hurt the rollout of this, certainly hurt the communication and the rollout, the confusion. I don't think the market's like that very much. What's the end game? What are the off ramps here? But let me ask you this: the chart that Trump pointed to when he rolled this out had a little bit of mixed numbers in it. And maybe you can clear some of that up. And this is again, I'm asking from the kind of a devil's advocate here, because some of those numbers included trade deficit, which is different than a tariff rate or a tariff deficit. Right? Because and again, if I'm getting this wrong, that's why I want you here. Let's get this straight. A trade deficit, like I have a trade deficit with my grocery store, and I'll always have a trade deficit with them unless they start purchasing food from me. So not all trade deficits are necessarily bad. We also have trade deficits with countries who are poor, who are not going to buy the same goods at the same level that we do from them. So where's the distinction between a trade deficit warranting reciprocal tariffs, or where does that factor into this broader tariff policy?
That's a great question. It brings to the second point of this conversation, Andrew. Most consumers are just ignorant, and they have no idea that a lot of countries are just taking advantage of the United States for decades now. And I can tell you for sure, Canada is one of those countries. I apologize to all my Canadian friends, but absolutely that America has been, dairy products from the United States have been taxed via tariff to enter Canada, and not vice versa. So Canadian dairy is not taxed in Canada, at least as of until Trump came in, but our products were taxed in Canada, our dairy products. So is that fair? And you find stories like this all over the globe with different countries, and Trump said, enough is enough. Now, again, who's going to pay the price of that? First, obviously the Canadian government has to deal with that, and the producers in Canada, but the American consumer will as well. Because now all of a sudden we have less competition, right? And the foreign products are more expensive. So again, we don't want to speak out of ignorance. We have to understand that these kinds of unfair, unreciprocated trade agreements should not exist. And I stand 100% with Donald Trump on this. So if you want to get, personal and take offense to it and get emotional, that's what people are doing. And I just find that such a ridiculous notion. What's good for the country is what's good for the country, whether you're personally offended or not. And again, this is a good inflation. It's not a bad inflation. It will lead to long-term independence from countries, like I said in the beginning, China and Canada in this case.
Will this approach help, the long-term plague of inflation that we're seeing just in general in America, or can it potentially, if we see everything through and it comes to fruition as you explain, are we going to see inflation come back down, or do we have to have interest rates rise to offset that and fully correct our economy and bring value back to our dollars?
Yeah, that's something they can evaluate. Sure, interest rates can play a role in this. Maybe rates can, raise a little bit or keep them moderate to manage this. I don't know exactly what his plans are, but whatever plans he has for tariffs, he can combat that in other ways. But again, you can't always have an up and up year. If you look back in history, okay, so maybe these few years, look, we had higher inflation because we're changing our trade policy. So what? That's a good thing, right? And years later, we'll say, well, guess what? Now we have domestic, semiconductors, again, lithium, nickel, agricultural products, cars, automobile industry. We brought it back home. I mean, just go to the state of Michigan. The whole thing has been abandoned to China, and you're telling me that's a good thing? What could possibly be worse? This is not worse than that, Andrew. We need to bring back production, and that is exactly what the MAGA hat represents, and people should be ashamed of themselves who are wearing that hat and now complaining about the tariffs. That is what makes America great again. Literally bringing back domestic manufacturing production back to our home, back to our soil. And how do we do that? One such way, and the main way, is to tax foreign products that are competing with domestic producers and putting them out of business. It's not that hard to understand. A kindergartner can understand this concept. But again, people are more concerned about their own pocketbooks. And look, I understand that. You have bills to pay. Okay. But at least understand what's happening and speak from a place of intelligence.
But that's why I was asking. Hopefully we could get some of this actually legislated, because if we can get it into law that's good, that's not just spending bills being passed over and over again, if we can get an actual law, then that helps insulate that from another administration undoing it, when the power of it is not just from the executive office, if it can come from our legislative branch as well. I think that's a piece we still have to address. Obviously, for now, we run out of the time, but for this initial clarification, thank you, Geeta Chopra. Really appreciate it. Remind everyone where they can find you in your online spaces.
Go to excellencedirectory.com. We're building a Christian business directory. And if you are a Christian small business owner, you want to list your services on our platform. We have thousands of consumers, Christian consumers, who are going to be looking for you. If you're a church, list on there. But you can find me on my website, and you can also find my books on Amazon. Just type in my first and last name.